Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. I got a very interesting message from Justin from KDE about a topic that I didn't actually think about being blind, but it's actually something very interesting that I want to show you guys now that I think about it. And basically, it's about how do I explain this the best way possible? Basically, what he asked is he gave me a hashtag inside the post, and he asked how the casing of a hashtag in a Mastodon post affects its accessibility, particularly with screen readers. Well, I didn't quite know what he meant by that at first. So I thought he was talking about, because he mentioned camel case, and I thought he was talking about programming, because that's where I work in. But, even though I understood that, or misunderstood that at first, programming is related to this, and I'll explain later. But either way, this thread, and it is private, but I did make sure that he's okay with me showing this, so that's why I'm showing this. But, I continued this, or I asked, what do you mean by that? Because, I've never really written about that, but yes, it is something that I do care about in my programming style guideline, but I haven't really made a case for why, other than just following .NET standards. But he replied, I'm referring to Mastodon posts and hashtags, and he gave a very great example that I'm actually going to have the Google screen reader read to you guys. Now, in this video, we're going to be hearing two different screen reader engines. The first one is going to be Google's text-to-speech engine, which it's all in vain, but it uses a lot of cloud-based stuff to do its processing, and I'm going to explain in this video why that's all in vain and why I think it's stupid for it to use the cloud stuff, and I'd just rather have a local screen reader, and I'm going to demonstrate why. But anyway, the other text-to-speech engine we're going to hear in this video is going to be eSpeakNG, which is an Arch Linux package you can get, and it's the backbone of Speech Dispatcher, which is also the backbone of Orca, the screen reader used in KDE. So we're gonna hear both, but I want you guys to hear this, because even if you're not blind, even if you've never heard a text-to-speech voice, and even if you are and you can't read what's on my screen right now, you're going to understand immediately what the problem is. But I'm also going to explain it. So let's actually have Google's text-to-speech engine read this. So if I double click on something that is not a link, if I double click on this and right click on it, I have an extension that lets me read aloud selected text. And if I just click on that,
at Acidic Light, I'm talking about posts on Mastodon. Many people will write hashtag #KDPlasma amazing, but your screen reader, I imagine, doesn't pronounce that correctly.
it doesn't.
Instead, hashtag KDE Plasma is amazing would be read correctly, right?
Yes. So, basically, in both cases, he typed in hashtag KDE Plasma is amazing. And the only reason I know that he did is because I actually zoomed in a lot and read it visually. But this first hashtag right here, the main difference is that it's all lowercase. It still says KDE Plasma is amazing, but the screen reader couldn't tell, and it pronounced it all as one word, and we ended up with KDPlasma amazing, or KDPlasma amazing, or something like that. It's not how it's supposed to be pronounced. Whereas the second hashtag, he said hashtag KDE in all caps, Plasma with a capital P, is with a capital I, and amazing with a capital A. And it was able to pronounce it correctly as KDE Plasma is amazing. So that's an example of what he's trying to ask, is this a thing you have to worry about? And that question has been answered by the question being read by the screen reader. But I'm not done, because it's not just Mastodon hashtags. I'm not terminally online, and, if I'm having trouble reading a hashtag, I can just zoom in and read it. It's not that big of a problem. But at the same time, it is something you should pay attention to. If you're going to hashtag something on Mastodon or on Twitter or on something else, do keep in mind how you write it, and make sure that the words are distinguishable through capitalization, because if you don't, the screen reader engines that most people are using are going to struggle with it. And I'm willing to wager that most people who hear these screen reader voices and think, "Oh my god, they mispronounced that," are not realizing what's actually going on. And I'm going to show you guys what's going on. So, if I open my IDE, which is JetBrains Writer, I'm going to open up a project, socially distant, and we're going to play around with the text-to-speech engine that I use for reading code, which is eSpeak. It's a local screen reading engine. It doesn't use the internet. It doesn't use any natural language processing AI crap. It's just a bog standard screen reader voice that is local to the system. And I actually prefer those. But here's some context. I am blind, but I still have sight left. I have enough sight to be able to zoom into the screen quite a lot, mind you, but enough to be able to read this menu bar. File, edit, view, window, or, okay, maybe I misread navigate, but, I went back and reread it, navigate, code, refactor. You can see I'm kind of struggling with the longer ones, but build, run, tests, tools, that was a little ambiguous, git, window, help. I can read that, because the font is, 3 feet tall, and they're single words. And there's Unity, by the way. But the reason I'm able to read those is because I'm concentrating on it. I have a condition that causes my eyes to shake back and forth. So, for me to be able to read these words, I need to put conscious effort into keeping my eyes still, and it's very difficult for me to do while talking or listening to music or videos or hearing people talk or basically anything else going on. I basically need to be in solitary confinement to be able to read. And it makes reading very long pieces of text very difficult for me because I can only read a few words at most every second. So I really struggle with that. So when I'm reading code, I'm not actually reading it. I'm using a program I wrote that's a JetBrains plugin. And remember that Chrome extension that I have that lets me highlight these Mastodon posts and read them aloud? Well, the Writer extension does the same thing. I can highlight a piece of my code and right-click on it and go read aloud select the text at the very top. There's even a keybind for it that I honestly never use, but it's there.
Public class game manager, mono behavior, iGame context.
And through having that plugin and me writing my code in a way that I require all of my code to be written, if you contribute to my projects, I'm able to read that perfectly without looking at it. The only thing I need to see is where to start and where to end, and it pronounces everything perfectly. There is one little bug with the implementation of this that I have to fix, and it's where if you double click on something and right click it and read it,
serialize field,
it will not read the last letter in the selection. It's an off by one error in the plugin itself and not the text-to-speech engine. I have to investigate and fix that. But I can always work around it by reading the entire line of text, including new lines, and
serialize field,
it reads it properly. So you're going to have to ignore that. But thankfully, we don't have to really play with this much anymore. I'm going to be playing with it at the command line for the rest of the video. But I just want to make the point that this attribute right here, this serialized field attribute, it's all one word as far as visuals are concerned. There's no spaces or dashes or anything between it. It's two words bunched up together. But the screen reader is still able to differentiate them as two different words because it's looking at the capitalization. It sees the capital S in serialize and the capital F in field, and when it goes to pronounce that, you get
serialize field.
Serialize feel without the D at the end because of the off by one error. But that's because as a programmer and as a writer, I have paid attention and stuck to conventions, and Unity has stuck to conventions about their naming, and means that the code is a lot more readable. But some people don't do that in their code. Namely, well, if I had the Kwin source code on hand, I'd probably have a look and verify, but I do have a snippet of it on my website, so I'll actually have a look at that. acidiclight.dev. We can go here. It's nice and speedy because it's a static web page. But we go down here, and we'll scroll down. After a while, we will see some Kwin source code here, and we're gonna have a look at what some of this looks like. So we have off-screen data, pointer off-screen data equals ensure off-screen data, render target, viewport, and then there's an if statement. Okay, so with these lines of code, I'm gonna have Google TTS read it, and I'm gonna have eSpeak read it, but we'll compare it.
Off-screen data sama dengan ensure off-screen data.
Okay.
Render target.
This is why I don't like the
Screen,
cloud-based ones,
if,
because they try to process natural languages,
return.
and you end up having it pronounce source code in a completely different language than you speak. But that was unintelligible to me. Thanks, Google. But if I paste it into eSpeak through Speech Dispatcher.
Off-screen data, ensure off-screen data, render target, viewport, screen, if off-screen data.
Okay, so
return.
Okay, so few issues. Also, this did not get pasted properly, but there are a few issues with actually reading the code. But other than those issues, so far, that's fully readable and intelligible.
Off-screen data, ensure off-screen data, render target, viewport, screen, if off-screen data.
Okay, I don't know what happened there. I think I only copied... No, what the hell? Okay, never mind, it's fine. I just misread it because what it's doing is it's taking whatever I put in and it's printing it back out. Never mind. Anyway, I could do a code review on this. I don't think it would be my place given it's Kwin and they have their own guidelines. But if I were to do one, the only accessibility concern I would have is with this if statement right here where we're checking if something is not null. I would generally prefer, from an accessibility perspective, that you be explicit about null checks and don't just rely on truthiness. Obviously, Kwin has its own guidelines, and if they say to do it, then do it. But in this case, this is where I would flag it and go, no, you need to be explicit because I need to know what you're checking against. And if I don't know that you're null checking, if I don't know that that's a pointer, then I'm not going to be able to read that properly without reverse engineering your code. Anyway, but that's besides the point. All of these variable names are completely readable. All of these class names are readable because the Kwin maintainers who write this code, maybe not purposefully, but they do, or maybe not purposefully in the context of screen readers, but they do follow a convention, and you can see that they're using consistent case styles. Obviously, there's going to be passive case for the class names, because that's very typical in a lot of object-oriented programming languages. And then camel case for the local variables. And then we have, I'm assuming this is okay, this is another accessibility issue. If this is an instance method, I would use explicit this. But again, Kwin has their own guidelines, you follow them. But yeah, this is obviously a method call, and you can tell that there's the distinguishment between the different words. But let's try reading some of this in the same way that Justin had typed KDE Plasma is awesome, where it had been mispronounced. Actually, let's try KDE Plasma is amazing first. And yes, I misremembered it as awesome. It's amazing. It's both. But, well, except for one bug report that I put out. But anyway, let's try KDE Plasma is amazing inside eSpeak. KDE is Plasma. Oh my god. KDE Plasma is amazing.
KDE Plasma is amazing.
So eSpeak got it wrong too. Google pronounced it in this weird half French kind of way that was not really correct. Plasma became Plasma. KDE Plasma became KDE Plasma. It was not right. And eSpeak basically did the same thing. I actually can't remember what it sounded like, so we'll do it again.
KDE Plasma is amazing.
So KDE Plasma is amazing. Not great. But if we do it in a proper style, again, KDE Plasma is, not Plasma, or not KDE is Plasma. If we do it with the proper capitalization,
KDE Plasma is amazing.
It pronounces properly. Because even eSpeak, a local screen reader that's just looking at phonemes and doesn't have like natural language processing data given to it from some cloud server off in the ether that probably doesn't work half the time, Google, no, your text-to-speech should not require the internet, because sometimes you don't have access to the internet and you're probably trying to read the screen to figure out why. But anyway, that's for another video or a blog article. But the point is, this supposedly dumb, not enhanced screen reading engine called eSpeak was able to figure out KDE Plasma is amazing, should be pronounced as KDE Plasma is amazing, because it looked at the capitalization. Now let's try source code, because source code is the more important thing for me, and I think it's very relevant to this topic. It's not just Mastodon hashtags you should be thinking about how you name. It's variable names, it's program names, commands, URLs, file names even. Basically anything that's a name on a computer that could be read by a screen reader, you need to consider how you name it and what kind of capitalization you use, because it will affect its readability. So let's try some of those variable names in Kwin, but typed in all lowercase. So let's try off-screen data.
Off-screen data.
As you can see, it pronounced it perfectly fine, other than there was a little bit of emphasis on the word off. But let's try ensure off-screen data.
Ensure off-screen data.
As you can see, it struggled a little bit there and went ensure off-screen, not ensure off-screen. Let's try render target.
Render target.
Still intelligible, but a little bit of incorrect emphasis. But still, I can tell that it's saying render target, so that's fine. In some cases, things are going to be fine, and it really doesn't matter. But in some cases, it does matter. Let's try some YouTuber names.
Brody Robertson.
As you can see, it completely stuffed up the pronunciation of Brody Robertson, and he's become Robertson. That ain't great. Let's try some Linux distro names. KDE Neon.
Kdenian.
Kdenian. That's not right. Let's try KDE Plasma. It's a desktop environment. I know it's not a distro name, but you get the point.
KDE Plasma.
KDE Plasma. So if this were like a package name and you were telling people how to install it, well, I would put a dash between KDE and Plasma, because
KDE Plasma.
that gets read. So that's one way you could deal with it, is using kebab case. But let's try more names. Let's try a good friend of mine's username.
Evil Skeleton.
The evil skeleton got read as Thievil Skeleton. Not great. Let's try another YouTuber name.
Thiojo.
Theotho became Thiotho.
Thiojo.
To be fair, that's more of a mispronunciation with eSpeak in general, but, you know, whatever. But Theotho got pronounced incorrectly. Let's try more distro names.
Arch Linux.
Kind of fine, but
Arch Linux.
let's try Pac-Man.
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man becomes Pac-Men.
Pac-Man.
Let's try ManPage.
ManPage.
ManPage is fine. Let's try eSpeak.
eSpeak.
eSpeak is fine. Let's try systemd.
Systemd.
Systemd is fine. GNOME. Hell.
GNOME Shell.
Kind of fine. But let's try KDE Hell.
KDES Hell.
KDES Hell. Not a flattering pronunciation of KDE Hell. Even though I don't think KDE Hell is actually a thing. But, you know, you get the point. Let's try another form of Brody Robertson. Brody on Linux.
Brody on Linux.
That is kind of okay, so maybe that's fine. Let's try some of the domain names I can think of. My own, acidiclight.dev.
Acidiclight.dev.
Pronounced perfectly fine other than the pronunciation, or of the punctuation.
Socially distant game.com.
SociallyDistantGame.com. It's intelligible, but it still gets a lot of the emphasis on certain syllables wrong, but that's still intelligible. So URLs, probably you don't have to worry too much, but GitHub. GitHub is fine. GitLab is fine. TrixelCreative.com.
TrixelCreative.com.
That's not an ideal one. It became Trixel Creative. Lost a lot of the pronunciation there. Let's try some more distro names.
OpenSUSE.
OpenSUSE, I think there's a special case in for that. Nayspeak. Red Hat. Fedora. Fedora's all one word, so we won't count that. Let's try Ubuntu GNOME.
Ubuntu GNOME.
Ubuntu GNOME. Ubuntu GNOME. Ironically, I'm pronouncing Ubuntu incorrectly there, but I'm so used to Ubuntu that, yeah. But anyway, Ubuntu GNOME should be Ubuntu GNOME. Ubuntu. Okay.
Animator.
What? Okay, I had a stroke. I believe my hands had a stork there.
Ubuntu Mate.
Ubuntu Mate. It should be Ubuntu Mate.
Ubuntu Mate.
To be fair, Mate is pronounced Mate, but their name is Mate, even though Mate has an accent character, so that's going to trip up the screen reader. That's Mate's fault. Yeah, let's try some variable names from Socially Distant and Restitched that I'm familiar with. Let's try Player Stuff.
Player Stuff.
Player Stuff's fine. Core Holder.
Core Holder.
Core Holder becomes Core Holder.
Level Object.
Level Object becomes Level Object. Not great.
Physical Group.
Physical Group becomes Physical Group. I'm about to get sued by Trixel Creative. Do I care? No, I'm making an example. MediaWiki.
MediaWiki.
That's fine. Let's try... God, I'm struggling to think of other names. But you can tell this is kind of an interesting exercise for naming things, is put your names through a screen reader, put your hashtags through a screen reader, your variable names through a screen reader, see how it gets pronounced. Because if it's intelligible with that text-to-speech engine, sure, it might be intelligible with that text-to-speech engine, but other engines might struggle. For example, eSpeak pronounces the brand name Squarespace perfectly fine. But in some builds of Windows 11, the Windows Narrator, Microsoft David Desktop, pronounces it as Squarespace.
Squarespace.
Kind of like that. With an H somewhere. Or, yeah, you get the point. Screen readers pronounce things differently. So, there are things you can do to help with that. And Justin's on a good he's on a good path there. It doesn't matter what casing style you use, because camel case is going to get pronounced the same as camel case in Pascal case, so let's try camel case.
Camel case.
And then let's try camel case again, but in Pascal case.
Camel case.
It sounds the same. The point is, there needs to be some sort of way for the speech engine to differentiate between the different words. And that can be capitalization.
Capitalized words.
It can be some kind of punctuation.
System print line.
It can be some kind of other other punctuation.
KDE applications.
See, that's the package name for KDE applications on Arch Linux. If I were reading the Arch Wiki, I'd be able to read that. It could be an underscore.
Keyboard check.
You know, kind of a Windows nod there. I don't think that's the exact naming style they use, but, you know, blue screen of death. It could be a space.
System to enable SDDM.
Oh, by the way, systemctl is very badly pronounced. I don't know how you would fix that, Leonard Pottering. But maybe system... I honestly wouldn't mind it being system control.
System control.
And then you'd be able to know that that's the system control command for systemd. Which would be interesting. It's a few extra key presses, but for screen reader accessibility, that's amazing. Amazingly worth it. I didn't even think about that till now. But the point is, there are lots of techniques you can use to make sure that things are readable for people who struggle with visual impairment and even dyslexia, because the blind aren't the only people who rely on screen readers. Sometimes you just struggle to read and want something to be read aloud, and it would be very nice if the things being read aloud were read aloud correctly. And I'm going to make the case that, well, you heard it earlier, putting artificial intelligence and clouds and all that crap in front of the blind and you know, screen reader users, using the internet and the cloud to solve that problem, it's all in vain because, well, we heard it earlier.
At Acidic Light, I'm talking about posts on Mastodon. Many people will write hashtag Kada Plasma amazing, but your screen reader, I imagine, doesn't pronounce that correctly. Instead, hashtag KDE Plasma is amazing would be read correctly, right?
Yeah, you heard it. And to prove that this is the internet reading that, and this is the other reason why I feel like these cloud-based text-to-speech engines are horribly implemented. I'm gonna stop Network Manager. I do not have internet right now. I misspelled systemctl, and I forgot a sudo. So, oh. I no longer have internet right now. If I try to read what Justin said through the text-to-speech engine...
At Acidic Light I'm talking about posts on Mastodon.
Ah, it got cached.
Many people will
Or
write
maybe I still do have
#Kda
internet.
plasma amazing, but your screen reader I imagine doesn't pronounce that correctly. Instead
Where is it
#KDE
pulling
plasma
it
is
from?
amazing would be read correctly, right?
I don't have internet. I swear I don't have internet. I shouldn't have internet. I still do have internet for some reason. IPA. Okay, I'm really gonna knock out my internet. IP link ENP6S0 set down, I think. It's not EMP, it's ENO. I do struggle to read that. No, what is it? It is definitely ENP6S0, so clearly I misread or mistyped something. Or is it? Okay, this should not be troubleshooting manual networking commands video, but now my internet should be down. And I can't resolve hosts or anything like that. If I try to read what Justin said when my internet connection is non-existent or slow, or it just can't connect to Google servers, I'm not reading that text. So that's why putting cloud shit putting cloud shit as a solution to text-to-speech engines mispronouncing things is all in vain, and just makes things even worse for us blind people, because sometimes you don't have internet and you need to read your screen to figure out why. I'm gonna bring my internet back online, and sudo systemctl enable --now network manager. There we go. Just to make sure I do have continuous internet access. Great. So yeah, with that in mind, you need to consider the fact when you're naming things that a text-to-speech engine is going to mispronounce it if you don't use proper casing. So, hopefully this video gives you a nice little demonstration on basically naming things and how that can go wrong for the visually impaired or dyslexic or anyone else who oh my god, I can't talk, who relies on a text-to-speech voice. And how I think that local TTS engines, for all the flack that they get for mispronouncing things, it's not their fault. It's just that content needs to be authored in a way that screen readers can handle. And you know what? The cloud-based ones are no better. And are in fact even worse because you need internet to use them. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. As always, I hope you learned something. My name is Michael, even though everyone calls me Richie. If you like what I do, and you want to support it, and you know, I know I stutter a lot, but if you like I can't talk, seriously. If you like what I do, and want to support me, there's a Patreon link in the description below. And if you want to catch up with what I'm doing on this YouTube channel, there's a subscribe button that I can't pronounce. And you know what? Other than that, I hope you learned something, hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And I hope this answers the question, Justin, because yes, the way you name things and the way you use capitalization in names and punctuation is very important, as we've seen in this video. So yeah, see you guys in the next one. Bye guys. Still haven't figured out this Green Deck. It's kind of embarrassing.